Hey guys, Kyle with Valor Racing, and today we're going to talk to you about our Super ATV power steering rack and pinion install, as well as their Super EZ power steering motor. So as you know from our Mint 400 race report, we lost power steering after the first big jump in the infield section. So we drove the first 30-something miles with no power steering. It was horrible. Well, after seeing our race report video, Corey with Super ATV called me up and he's like, "Hey man, were you running our stuff?" And I was like, "No, I'm sorry, it's been on the list, but we weren't running it." So after talking to him a little bit, I jumped online, I ordered it, and so here it is. We're going to install it and see how it works on our race car. So it looks pretty positive so far. It's got a little bit bigger motor in the power steering unit, so it gives us a lot more power translated to the wheel, so it's a little easier to turn, which is a big deal for us, being that this is a 2016 car. The steering input was a little slow, so we do run a steering quickener on this. The quickener makes feedback a lot harder, especially when you lose power steering. So hopefully this bigger motor helps out a lot. We're excited to test it out and try it and see how that works. The steering rack is also a big one. A lot of people still run in the factory steering racks, and lately seen a lot of failures, probably because of how rough the race courses have been. The Super ATV rack is significantly larger. I think it's a 65% larger housing, 15% diameter increase in the actual steering shaft, all chromoly hardware on it. Looks to be a pretty solid unit, so we're gonna rip into this machine, pull the parts out, and let's see what we got. Alright guys, so we got our steering rack and the power steering unit out, and so let's take a look at it. The Super ATV unit, obviously it's different sized. It's got a separate brain, I guess you would call it. I'm guessing this mounts to the firewall. We didn't get instructions, so luckily we're fairly technical, so we'll probably be able to figure it out. But yeah, you can kind of see the physical differences, a little smaller, compact, but also a little bit longer. It's also the way they built the plate, it's indexable, so that might allow us to move it up out of the way a little bit once it's up in the car. Yeah, so one of the other things I noticed was the splines coming in and out are different. Super ATV does provide a couple extra linkages if you are running the factory steering rack. We are using an aftermarket AFV steering quickener, so I'm guessing we'll probably have to cut and re-weld on our splined, I don't know what they call those, tie rods or whatever, onto the steering rack. Moving on to the actual rack itself, so looking at the differences in the rack, you can see the Super ATV rack is obviously significantly larger. It's got a lot beefier housing here. The main tube's a lot larger. It's a machined unit. Even the bracket itself is a lot thicker steel. This actual steering shaft, you can notice the bigger shaft on the Super ATV. Super ATV does include some pretty nice tie rod ends here. I really like the ball joint ends versus the ones that use the Heim. The Heim joint, you have to have them positioned just right, and if they move, you can actually bend your steering rods pretty easily. So looks like pretty nice hardware. Unfortunately, we do have a long travel kit on this car, so we probably will not be able to use those, as you can see the difference in the thread length between the RTPro ones and the Super ATV, but shouldn't be a big issue there. So we'll see how the rest of the install goes. Alright, so we kind of figured we'd show you a couple differences here in these steering linkages. This is the steering linkage that goes from the actual power steering motor down to the rack. Super ATV unit actually is pretty cool. It's got this spline shaft so you can adjust it, which is really nice. I know from our wreck, I bent the brake pedal a little bit. Apparently I was trying to stop very quickly, so the dimension changed just ever so slightly, so just keeps everything from being in a bind, lets everything float the way it needs to be, and then you pinch down and it's tight. Where we're going to run into an issue is, of course, like I mentioned, we are running the steering quickener. The Super ATV shaft, upper shaft, is designed to replace the actual part that goes through the column, and ours obviously can't do that. So probably what we'll end up doing is we'll just section this here, and we'll TIG weld it back together, and we should be back in business. So take a couple quick measurements, and I'll probably try to retain the slip yoke design down here at the bottom the Super ATV has, because I do like that.
What's up, everybody? So me and Kyle, we're out here in the desert and we are going to start testing out the car a little bit. We just got the new Super ATV steering rack all put in, and so we're gonna test that bad boy out and see how well that does. And then yeah, we're just gonna try to feel out the car. It's been a while since we've really gotten to test the car and see how the whole thing is handling and working since we made some few changes on it. So yeah, we're pretty darn stoked. Not excited this time. We are stoked to get out and test the car out. So yeah, let's do it. How's the car?
It is awesome. The steering works really well. A lot less feedback into the steering wheel, a lot easier to turn. You could definitely notice the more powerful motor. It's different for me because I'm used to it being so hard that takes a few minutes for me to get used to it being so much easier, but I think I'm gonna like it. I think over the long term of the desert racing that definitely less fatigue on us, so keep us fresher a lot longer.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. All right, so we just finished up testing her out for today. Car's still running a little goofy. It's still got a little bit of a sputtering issue, and the belt temps are really high, so we're still scratching our heads trying to figure out what's wrong with that. But the new power steering, like Kyle just said, was super awesome, and he really liked it, so that's a win in our book. So yeah, we're just gonna load up and head out and try to figure out what's wrong with the sputtering and what's going on there. So see you guys in the next one. Woo!